about those societal features and then what kind of religion, these all kind of aspects we need to see, economy during the Gupta period, since they were very important in the last leg of the ancient. And then after Gupta, we will be seeing the post-Gupta period, particularly that what happened in North and then South also. And particularly, I haven't mentioned about Sangam period. So today we'll be also looking at the Sangam period. So hopefully by tomorrow's class, in the first half itself, we'll be able to complete the ancient, and then after we'll be starting with the medieval. So medieval, I hope that we have how many classes? 4 classes this week till Sunday. So by Monday, if I'm getting a class, or by Tuesday, so this particular section would be over. So let's begin with the last Chandragupta second we mentioned. Let's come to the next personality or next such ruler in the Gupta period, Kumar Gupta. So Kumar Gupta, and he was the son of the Chandragupta second. So I did mention about that during the tenure of the Chandragupta II, Fahian came to India, and Fahian was a Chinese Buddhist traveler. So Fahian was there in India for a long time, and since he came from the Buddhist learning perspective, so his endeavor was also towards the Buddhist things. Now, at this point of time, Kumar Gupta, that who was the son of the Chandragupta II, so he was also very much influenced with the Fahian. And the biggest contribution of the Kumar Gupta that we'd be mentioning are here, that is that he is the founder of the Nalanda University. So he is the founder of the Nalanda University, and it is said as that the influence of this particular Fahian was there, but he was the founder. Moreover, Nalanda University was considered as a university in a modern sense. Why we call it as a university in a modern sense? That it has that modern infrastructure, modern as per that time, not today's time. So it had physical infrastructure, it had course infrastructure, it has all the things which are associated in the present day modern universities. So majority of those things were available at that point of time. In fact, there was a question, I think in 2015, that why that I'm telling you the essence of the question, though the question was very big, but the original question was just in one line. So essence of the question that you needed to compare that why Nalanda was considered as modern and Takshashila was not modern. And so Nalanda has this physical infrastructure. Nalanda has those facilities which are there in the modern institutions like libraries, like hostels. Then they have that very prefixed kind of syllabus, and regular exams were happening. On the basis of that exam, students were upgraded into the next class. So this kind of system was there in the Nalanda, but in Takshashila, it was not that this type of system was not there. Takshashila was an informal type of the university. In fact, entire area in the Takshashila was a synonymous with the education sector. Nowadays, just like the way we say Kota is famous for the medical, earlier it was only for the engineering institutions, but nowadays medical also. So medical and engineering coaching institutes. Then, so entire area is known for the medical preparation and then also engineering preparation. Same way, Takshashila entire area was a kind of, it was known as the uh, uh, university or kind of that education scenario. But overall it was called as a university, but there was no as such dedicated physical infrastructure, dedicated hostel, dedicated library or system of examination was not there in the Takshashila. And we are at a time when funny things do happen in and around us. I don't know that you have read it in the newspaper or not, but very recently, 2-3 days back, there is this minister of the some cabinet minister of the Pakistan government. He just quoted that Takshashila was situated in the ancient Pakistan, and somebody reconstructed those aerial views of that university, that ancient Pakistan, and then also Takshashila University in the ancient Pakistan. So aerial views, and then he started telling that he has written in his tweets that teachers like Padini were there from this institute, teachers like Kautilya, even he was very wrong in writing the spelling of the Kautilya. So he started writing, and then there was a flurry of the memes. And some people did ask. I just came across one meme where somebody wrote that my grandfather is 94 years old, and even he is older than Pakistan, which came in 1947. So there is no such thing like the Pakistan, ancient Pakistan. There is no such thing like the ancient Pakistan. But this is how the ministers are chosen, and it's not a that this is not a barring case, but in India also you will see that this type of ministers who claim these kind of things, they don't have any knowledge. If they would have to be chosen on the basis of their intellectia, so near about only 10% people would have been there in the parliament, otherwise all are imbeciles, sab gadhe hain. So let's get back to this Kumar Gupta. So Kumar Gupta founded this Nalanda University, and Nalanda University on the modern lines where it had a well-built dedicated physical infrastructure. So please write few words about him. Only this much you need to write about that his initiative related to Nalanda. So you write, uh, he founded he founded Nalanda University. He founded Nalanda University under the influence of Fahyan. Under the influence of Fahyan. Then you write, the university had the university had dedicated physical infrastructure. The university had dedicated physical infrastructure like classrooms, hostels, library, etc. Libraries, etc. Full stop. Then you mention, in fact, in fact, it is said, in fact, it is said that Nalanda Library was the largest in the world, was the largest in the world. Then further you write, largest in the world, full stop. It regularly conducted exam, it regularly conducted exam on the basis of predefined syllabus, on the basis of predefined syllabus, defined syllabus, and, and, and promotion to next grade, and promotion to next grade was based on, was based on, was based on the outcome of exam. So listen, meanwhile I'm telling you about the Nalanda. So here only in 2-3 lines you also mention about the Takshashila. Takshashila was there from long time. That Nalanda came to picture during the Guptas, but Takshashila is the oldest university area in the India. And in fact it is there from the time of the before the time of the Mauryas. It existed even before the time of the Mauryas. So please write few words about the Takshashila. On the other hand, on the other hand, on the other hand, Takshashila University didn't had dedicated physical infrastructure, didn't have dedicated physical infrastructure like Nalanda, like Nalanda, like Nalanda, and education was imparted. Education was imparted in Guru Shishya Parampara. Education was imparted in Guru Shishya Parampara. Let me tell you a little bit about this one. What is this Guru Shishya Parampara? Going by this Guru Shishya Parampara, that students were going to the houses of the Guru and there the education was imparted. Then, so it is not like that you are coming to the classes and then classes से education हो रहा है, ठीक है? So even today also it is what I can say that not Guru Shishya, Guru तो अपने घर से ही पढ़ा रहा है. The basically not in vision but in other institute, Guru is teaching from his home only. चाय लेके बैठ गए and then the guru is in boxers, ऊपर शर्ट डाल लिया, नीचे boxers हैं and then he is teaching. So guru तो अपने घर से पढ़ा रहा है but and शिष्य भी घर से पढ़ रहा है. So this would be new kind of system. So guru shishya parampara, here what happened, that the disciple was going to the house of the guru. There it's a kind of for example, that if you once you were there in class 11th, 12th, 9th and 10th, so there you were taking those private coachings at the houses of the guru. So that kind of system you can say. So they were going to the house of the guru and there they were learning, and after that there was no such fixed system of exam. It was the satisfaction of the guru that whenever he felt that now you have acquired enough knowledge, so then he said that your education is over, you can go on. And whatever you want to pay as a Guru Dakshina, you can do that. And he even at that point of time in Takshashila, that Guru will not define that you will be giving 100 rupees, 1000 rupees. It's up to your capacity. That whatever your capacity is, according to you can give some Guru Dakshina to the Guru, and Guru will have to accept that without, even if it is very less, he will not say anything. Then, so that was the system in the Takshashila, but it was not the system in the Nalanda. So Guru Shishya Parampara, I am not explaining, not dictating the part which I explained, but I hope you understood what I meant by the Guru Shishya Parampara. One more part you write in this one, that in Takshashila itself, what is that? So regular exams were not conducted. Regular exams were not conducted, but students were tested by Guru on the basis of their knowledge. Students were tested by the Guru on the basis of their knowledge, in an informal setup. In an informal setup. Full stop. And one last difference between the Nalanda and Takshashila. See, Takshashila, why I am mentioning here again, I'll tell you. Takshashila is not, it was not exist that came to picture during the Gupta period. It is a very, or you can say, oldest university in the world. That's what is said about the Takshashila, that oldest university in the world. So Takshashila is there from very long time. Nalanda was created at this point of time. So if at all, once again, if a comparison comes between the two universities, so you will be able to write. One last difference which I need to maintain between the Nalanda and Takshashila. Nalanda was concentrated around the learning related to the Buddhism, but Takshashila was multidisciplinary in nature. Then, so please write. This is very easy question. If you guys see that I'm requesting you, you all students, that some places maybe I'm not writing, if I'm not writing some dates, so उसके बारे में concern मत रहो, but I will write it is 415 to 400. uh, 50. Then 415 to 450, but these are not very important, or you yourself can write down those things. These are a little bit unimportant, but koi nahi, since I am writing from long time these all things, so I will be writing wherever it would be required. So his tenure was somewhere from 415, approximately 450. So not exactly, but approximately 450. Uh, till this point of time, his tenure was there. So I hope you understood. So last difference you write. On one hand, on one hand, on one hand, on one hand, the learning in Takshashila was learning in Nalanda was concentrated around, learning in Nalanda was concentrated around Buddhism, was concentrated around Buddhism, but, but Takshashila, Takshashila was multidisciplinary in nature. Takshashila was multidisciplinary in nature. Multidisciplinary in nature. So this is all about the difference between the Nalanda and Takshashila. Then, so Nalanda and Takshashila. Now we will see the last ruler, and that is the Skanda Gupta. So let me write. Skandagupta, he was there till 467. After the period of the Kumar Gupta, he was there till 467. Then, so now listen that little bit about the Skandagupta. So he was the last, he was the last important ruler. So exactly 455 to 67. So it means that Kumar Gupta tenure ended by 455. That you can write down. So Skandagupta was the last important ruler of the Guptas. I am not saying he is the last ruler, but he was the last important ruler of the Guptas. So who came to power around by 455. Then during the tenure, listen carefully, that during the tenure of the Skandagupta, one Central Asian tribe, barbaric Central Asian tribe, Hunas, they started to invade the Gupta territory. So started to invade the Gupta territories, but what happened? That Skandagupta, since he was a powerful ruler, so he was able to repel or challenge their invasion. So by the time he was alive, Gupta territory was safe from the attacks of the Hunas. But the moment he died, these Hunas, they reorganized themselves, and under the leadership of two Hunas, Toraman and Mihirkula, and this time when they attacked on Gupta territory, so they completely looted it, then plundered it, looted it. They looted so much of valuables from the Gupta area, and this marked the beginning of the decline and disintegration of the Guptas, which was final by 550 AD. Means by 550 AD, Gupta dynasty completely disappeared from India. So please write a little bit about Skanda Gupta. So he was the last important ruler. He was the last important ruler of Gupta dynasty. Last important ruler of Gupta dynasty. Then further you mention. First, before this Toraman and Mihirkula or Hunas, I just need to add one more thing. If you guys remember in the previous class, when I was talking about these Indo-Greeks and Indo-Greeks, then I talked about Shakas, Parthians, and then Kushanas. So in Shakas, the very important ruler of the Shaka, Rudradaman, I mentioned. And I mentioned something related to Rudradaman, that was Junagadh inscription and Sudarshan Lake. So what he wrote in the Junagadh inscription, he has written in Junagadh inscription that Sudarshan Lake was created by the Chandragupta Maurya's governor Pushyagupta Maurya, and moreover he also repaired it. Now, one more addition was done in this Junagadh inscription, and that addition was done by the Skandagupta. So Skandagupta also repaired Sudarshan Lake, and then he added this particular thing in the Junagadh inscription. So when you look at the Junagadh inscription, so in Junagadh inscription, there is a inscription of the Rudradaman and inscription of the Skandagupta also. So please write that he also repaired Sudarshan Lake. He also repaired Sudarshan Lake, which he mentioned in Junagadh inscription. Which he mentioned in Junagadh inscription. Which he mentioned in Junagadh inscription. Full stop. Then after that you write which he mentioned in Junagadh inscription. During his tenure, a barbaric tribe from Central Asia, Hunas, Hunas, started to invade Gupta territory. Full stop. Then you mention Skandagupta effectively repelled them. Skandagupta effectively repelled them. Full stop. But after the death of Skandagupta, Hunas reorganized themselves under the leadership of Toraman and Mihirkul. Reorganized themselves under the leadership of Toraman and Mihirkul. And completely looted the Gupta territory. Completely looted the Gupta territory. Full stop. Then you mention it marked the decline and disintegration. Of Guptas. It marked the decline and disintegration of Guptas, who disappeared from India by 550 AD. Who disappeared from India by 550 AD. Then, so who disappeared from India by 550 AD. So this is about the political things associated with the Guptas. Now come to the other important aspects associated with the Guptas. So not every place we are going to read in a way we have read like Vedic period. Ki economy, polity, society, religion. But here we are going to see those things. Then, so let's discuss about the economic scenario or economy during the Guptas. Then, so here little bit of detail would be there, but not all the places. And in fact, that there are two areas from the ancient history which is favorite of the UPSC. That ancient and medieval history which is favorite of UPSC. From ancient, the favorite of UPSC is Gupta, and from medieval, the favorite of UPSC is Vijayanagar. Then, so these two are the, if you will ask me ever at any point of time that which particular section do you feel that most important in the ancient and medieval, so I'll be telling you this, that it is Gupta from the ancient and then this particular Vijayanagar from the medieval. So let's look at the, even they don't ask so many questions from the Akbar. They have asked questions, time and again they have asked questions from the Akbar's tenure, but not in the quantum like they asked from the Guptas and then Vijayanagar. Moreover, what I must have mentioned in the very first class to you guys, that ancient syllabus is not particularly very clearly not mentioned in the main syllabus, but what is mentioned in the main syllabus is the modern Indian history mentioned, world history mentioned, and then post-independence mentioned, and art and culture is mentioned. But people always forget that art and culture is also the root of the ancient and medieval. So they last 5 years they were asking at least one question from the ancient. I will not say medieval, but one question from the ancient with through the root of the art and culture. So let's look at the economy during Guptas. Economy. So economy during Guptas, listen, that when it comes to the economy, so first of all, you know that any government or any monarchy, their most important source of income is the taxes. Then, and when we talk about the ancient India, so most important source of the tax is the land revenue. Okay? So land revenue or land tax. So land tax was the most important, and what was the rate of this land tax during the Guptas? So they fixed it at 1 by 6th of the produce. Then, so they fixed it at 1 by 6th of the produce in the normal times. And whenever any emergency situation was there, so the tax was enhanced little bit then, and if there is a war or external aggression, so then it is enhanced little bit, or if there is any such kind of natural calamity, so then it was reduced further. So it was a very practical kind of tax system, and 1 by 6th is a it's a very comfortable type of the tax rate then, which is not oppressive to the people. So this is there. Then I need to talk some other aspects also, but first you write. So land tax was the most important source of revenue. Land tax was the most important source of revenue. Most important source of revenue. Then further you mention it was fixed at 1 by 6th of the produce it was fixed at 1 by 6th of the produce during normal times. During normal times. During normal times. Then further you write, but in emergency situations, it was altered. In emergency situation, it was altered. For example, emergency situation, it was altered. For example, it was enhanced during the external war or aggression enhanced during external war or aggression, and reduced reduced at the time of natural calamity, reduced at the time of natural calamity. Then, so this is about the tax system. Now, few other things which I need to mention from the economy, and in fact, there was a question in this year prelims itself related to the economic aspects of the Guptas. So, uh, when it comes to the practice that you have studied in the Satvahan period, and what was the practice? Granting of land to the monks and also the priest, then in lieu of their service. So the practice of granting land to the monks and also priest started in the Satvahan period. It was further continued in the Gupta period. In fact, that in the Gupta period, it was basically what was there, that I just forgot. So there is a discontinuation in the thought. I started looking at the board. So let me. So, sir, what is this tax introduced by Chandragupta Maurya? Sir, was this tax introduced by which kind of tax? And please, I'm requesting that when I'm telling you something, na, so please don't post questions on the prompter because I do forget. This is what is there with me, that my rhythm is broken. So, language of teaching in Nalanda and Takshashila. Okay. So, chalo, I'll tell you that what is the language also. But so let me complete the part and then I'll get back to your questions. Listen, what I was saying I just forgot. So 1 by 6th of the tax, and then, so I was telling you about the Satvahan period, that in Satvahan period, the priestly class was granted land, and they were granted land in lieu of their service. Now in the Gupta period it continued, and not only they were giving the land grants to the Brahmins and the priest, but also they started to grant it to the officers. Then, so the new practice started in the Gupta period, that they were granting lands to the officers also, not just to the priestly class, but also to the officers. So this is one new thing which happened. Moreover, I will be telling you that some of the ports of the Guptas at this point of time, and this year there was a question from the ports itself. In fact, it's not something which is very difficult or which cannot be predicted. One type of question which is favorite of the UPSC, that is the ports, and many a times after 2-3 years they are asking that these ports, they will give you the names of the ports, and you need to identify that either these ports were there at the time of the Guptas or Mauryas or whoever. And moreover, sometimes they do ask that this particular kingdom, what was the most important port of this particular kingdom. So this kind of questions are asked. So questions are also many a times they are predictable. It's only that how you are covering those information. But many a times we are in enthusiasm, we are kind of dragged by some unimportant questions, or we don't know most of the time, since you guys are preparing for the first time, so you don't know that what kind of questions may come. For example, that this which language was used. So I don't think that it will be ever asked in the exam, or it hasn't been asked in the exam. If I'm saying ever, it would be ever asked in the exam. So I'm saying on the basis of what UPSC have asked in the previous year exams. So again, I'm requesting you guys that please see the question paper of last 15 years. You will get fair idea that what can be asked in the exam, and accordingly you can, if you are doing value addition at your own end, so you can do value addition. See that everything cannot be delivered in the classes. This is the limitation in the classes, that you have been promised near about, I think, how many classes, I don't know exact number overall, that how many classes, but months have been decided, that 9 months or 10 months or 11 months. So in this duration your course would be over. Moreover, everything cannot be delivered in the classes. There is a limitation for each and every subject, that for example, this subject, it was supposed to get completed in 10 classes, but somehow I have taken a leeway, and then even till the 8th class I'm teaching you ancient. So from my own end, I'm trying to give you a little bit extra, but even in that scenario, the ancient and medieval is so vast that nothing can be completed even in 30 classes also. So you will be doing the value addition later on, since your batch is new, but after some point of time you will be doing value addition, and this value addition must be on the basis of the previous year paper. So please look at the previous year paper, and my job is that every time I need to emphasize on this, that please look at the previous year paper, accordingly do the value addition if you want to then, or whenever you are kind of concerned that what would be that some enthusiastic questions are coming in your mind, that what was the language or whatever. So it's fairly obvious that you are enthusiastic, but you also need to see that, do I need to remember this thing? Do I need to see these things? And how you will be able to decide? Only by seeing the previous year paper. So let me tell you that the language was Sanskrit only. When we talk about the what was the language, so language was Sanskrit only. The Takshashila is the oldest university. Here the Sanskrit language they were using. But in Nalanda University, since it is related to the Buddhism, so it was Pali language which was used, mostly it was used over there. But it's not like a watertight compartment, that every place has had, there is so long history of the Apabhrams. And I don't need to tell you over here that what is Apabhrams, क्योंकि unnecessarily हम class फिर दूसरे direction में ले जाएंगे. So apabhrams were also there. Many apabhrams or deviations from the original language were there. But the original languages were Sanskrit and then this. And the very first question which was submitted, you didn't mention which kind of tax. Then, so you need to mention the type of the tax which you are asking. So now, I hope you understood this part. So second part you haven't written. And in second part, I need to add one more thing, which is this land grants, some of the land grants were named also, that they were given some specific name. For example, Agrahar was a land grant which was given to the Brahmin. Agrahar and Brahmadeya, so salt tax. See that, please be focused in the classes. It's not a joke. Classes are not the joke. And questions must not be based on your whims and fancies. Then please don't do that. And I am in no mood of kind of entertaining those redundant questions. And not just the redundant question, even I don't want to what I can say, that to criticize you guys. मन ही नहीं हो रहा है मेरे को. So थोड़ा सा क्लासेस में ओरिएंटेड रहो, प्रिपरेशन के अकॉर्डिंगली पढ़ो, जो नहीं जरूरी है वो मत पूछो, ठीक है. झूठ में क्लासेस के नंबर बढ़ाओगे, एंड देन दिस इज व्हाट आई सेड कि उसी अकॉर्डिंगली काम करो. Please see the previous year paper and accordingly ask your questions also, and accordingly do your value addition. ठीक है. So no place I mentioned salt tax, and this is how you guys, even not being present over here, you frustrate us. Then that you just make us angry. So please don't do that. It will be not good for you also, and it will not be good for the classes also. Unnecessarily dragging the class and then replying to those questions which are not at all important from the exam, but also from the perspective of overall course. So please write the last part, next part. Guptas continued with the practice of land grant. Guptas continued with the practice of land grant Then you write, it was not only granted, it was not only granted to the priestly class, to the priestly class, but also, but also, but also to the important officers and nobles, but also to the important officers and nobles. Full stop. Then you write, and you can see these words on the board which I'm writing. So you write Agrahar and Brahmadeya. Agrahar and Brahmadeya were the were special land grants were special land grants given to special land grants given to Brahmins. Special land grants given to Brahmins. Then one last thing. So in economy, I will tell you that the important ports in the western coast, on the western coast during the Gupta period, and also on the eastern coast. So you can mention, I'm writing here, important ports of Guptas. Ports of Guptas. So west, on the western side, so on the western side, Chaul, Kalyan, Bharuch, and Cambay. Then on the eastern side, Kadura, Ghantasila, Ghantasila, Tamralipti. So these are the important ports of the Guptas on both the sides. So eastern side, this Kadura, Ghantasila, and Tamralipti, and on the other side, Chaul, Kalyan, Bharuch, and Cambay. So let me tell you the tax which was asked in 2018, yes, 18 not or 17, in 2017 paper, the tax which was asked from the Gupta period, that's the last in this, विस्थी. So ऐसे ही single word में लिख लो, विस्थी was a type of tax paid in form of physical labor, paid in form of physical labor, or you can also say physical labor के जगह forced labor, forced labor. So if you have asked this question, I would have been happy. So I would have been happy that at least you guys are seeing the what has been asked in the paper. But again, I'll request you that please don't ask question according to your whims and fancies. So please write this one. This was the question in 2017 or 18. Either of the 2 years, किसी एक साल में पूछा है. Vesti was a type of a forced labor tax, or it was a type of tax paid in the form of physical labor. So this is all about the economy. Now, some administrative units of the Guptas I need to mention. So as this way, you can mention administrative units. Administrative units. So first one you write Bhukti. Bhukti, then Vishay and Gram. So I hope you have written this part. Bhukti was the province. Then Vishay was the, you can say, district. There is a one more, Vithi. Vithi. See that here the tax was Visti, but here there is a division Vithi. So Bhukti, Vithi. So province, then province, then this you can call it as a zone, Vithi. Then Vishay is the district and Gram is the village. So these were the some of the popular divisions at this point of time during the Guptas. So Bhukti, Vithi, Vishay and Gram. And the officers who headed or the head of these all divisions, so head of these all divisions, the person who headed the province was known as Bhuktipati. Just 1 minute. Bhuktipati. And the one who headed every place you just need to add a pati. So here Vithipati, Vithipati, Vishaypati, and then change would be there in the gram, that is village. So head of the village was Gramadi. So these are the administrative units. Now let's come to the very important part during the Guptas, that is their society and religion. So first I'll talk about little bit about the religion. Society would be the last topic. So religious practices during Gupta. Now listen, what happened at this point of time? So first of all, during the time of the that this particular time of the Mauryas, post-Maurya period, by the time of the post-Maurya period, this concept of the three Dev was very much consolidated. Three Dev means that there are three gods who are, one is originator, one is the one who preserves the universe, and then one is the destroyer, that is Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So this concept was already, it was circulating from the later Vedic period and very much consolidated by the this period, that particularly post-Maurya period. Now, in the Gupta period, what was the new beginning in the Gupta period? That they came up with the concept of the Three Devi also. And who are Three Devi? So they are the consorts of these three Devata. So consorts of the three Devata, that Lakshmi, Parvati and Saraswati. So this concept came. Then other things in religion, that during the Gupta period, the bhakti was emphasized, the concept of bhakti was emphasized, rather than going all after animal sacrifice or any kind of sacrifice, that they emphasized on devotion or bhakti. In fact, the bhakti superseded the concept of the sacrifice. Another development in the religious scenario of the Gupta period was construction of the temple started at this point of time. So this temple topic which we will be elaborately reading in the art and culture. So here I'm just mentioning that temple architecture began at this point of time, and this temple architecture which began at this point of time, it gave rise to the Nagara style of or Nagar style of temple. Then moreover, during the Gupta period, many religious, Hindu religious literature were compiled. For example, that majority of the Puranas were written at the time of the Guptas. So please write few words about the religious practices. So you write, by post-Maurya period, by post-Maurya period, by post-Maurya period, concept of concept of Tridev, concept of Tridev, concept of Tridev was already concept of Tridev was already consolidated, was already consolidated. Then you write, in Gupta period, in Gupta period, Tridevi concept, Tridevi concept was fully formalized. Tridevi, so you add I over here. So Tridevi concept was fully formalized. As you can see, it's too much cold over here. And earlier when the offline classes were there, so even in the winters that there was chilling winter, so it didn't felt so in the classroom because so many people were there in front of us, and then there is so much of heat which was produced by you guys, that carbon dioxide and everything. Now in front of me there near about 300 chairs are there, all are empty, and only two people are there in the class. One, I'm here, and another person at the camera. So it's very chilling in the classroom. So hopefully that as per the meteorological department of India, that till 18th of December this kind of winter would be there in Delhi, and then it will start to be normal. Let's see that how much correct meteorological department of India is there. That so let's get back to this one. So what you have written, that Devi concept was fully formalized. Then you mention, that is, so you mention Saraswati, Lakshmi and Parvati. That is Saraswati, Lakshmi and Parvati. Saraswati, Lakshmi and Parvati. Then you mention, moreover, moreover, the concept of devotion or bhakti, moreover, the concept of devotion or bhakti superseded superseded the practice of sacrifice. Superseded the practice of sacrifice. See, many a times that people do ask question related to this only. Superseded the concept of animal sacrifice. It does not mean that animal sacrifice stopped, but it reduced. The way animal sacrifice was done in the earlier period, now at this point of time it has been reduced. Then so many people started talking about the bhakti rather than sacrifice. Then further you mention, a majority of Hindu literature, a majority of Hindu literature was written down, was written down, majority of Hindu literature was written down at this point of time, was written down at this point of time, which includes which includes Puranas, which includes Puranas, which includes Puranas, Puranas. Then further you mention which includes Puranas. Another major development in the Gupta period, another major development in the Gupta period, in the Gupta period was beginning of the construction of temples. Beginning of the construction of temples, beginning of the construction of temples, which gave rise to, which gave rise to Nagar style of temple, which gave rise to Nagar style of temple, which gave rise to Nagar style of temple. So this is what happened as far as the religion is concerned, what happened in the Gupta period. But as I said to you that this temple part, it's a topic to be explored in the art and culture. So I'll be telling you in detail later on, then in art and culture. Now let's look at the very important aspect of the Guptas, that is society during the Gupta period. So society during Gupta period. So when it comes to society during Gupta period, listen, in Vedic period also we talked about the society, and the very first topic we started in the society was the status of the women in the society. So just listen little bit that what was the status of the women in society at this point of time. Though the Gupta ruler, that Gupta period, generally it is believed to be a very accommodative period, and as far as the development in the society is concerned, there was development in the society, but same is not applicable to the scenario of the women. Though the Gupta rulers tried to ameliorate the situation or condition of the women, but they were not successful. And they were not successful, in fact, that this was a kind of pseudo amelioration. Let me tell you that why I am calling it pseudo amelioration, because first of all that they started to compare the women with the image of the goddess like Lakshmi, Parvati, Saraswati. But once you compare the ladies with the Lakshmi, Parvati, Saraswati, these kind of goddess, so it is obvious that you expect them to behave like the goddess. Then so behave like the goddess means that they will not be venturing out of their houses, they will be behaving in a they will be well mannered then, and whatever kind of their cravings are there, they will be suppressing it. So in fact they started to that at this point of time ladies started to be seen as the घर की इज्जत. Then so when you tag somebody as a घर की इज्जत, so she will also have to take care of that she is घर की इज्जत. Then so she is घर की इज्जत. If she wants to marry somebody, she cannot marry. Then if she likes somebody, she cannot say it. Then if she wants to work outside her houses, she cannot do that. So this घर की इज्जत kind of thing imposed so many restrictions on her. Then so many restrictions on her. So though the attempt was to improve their condition, but it was unsuccessful. In fact, that the higher Varna women or higher class women, they were more they were that living a more restricted life than the lower Varna women. For example, that higher Varna women, they were not allowed to work outside their houses to secure an independent source of living, but the lower Varna women, they were allowed to do so. So they were allowed to do so. Then on a positive note, there were some good things also that I will tell you, but first you write this part. So you write that though the Gupta rulers, though the Gupta rulers tried to uplift the position of women, tried to uplift the position of women in society, tried to uplift the position of women in society, but but they were not successful. But they were not successful. Then further you mention many restrictions, many restrictions were imposed, many restrictions were imposed on them, many restrictions were imposed on them regarding their movement, regarding their movement. Full stop. Then you mention class women, higher class women, higher class women were not allowed, higher class women were not allowed to secure, were not allowed to secure independent source of living. Higher class women were not allowed to secure independent source of living, but but lower class women, lower class women were allowed to do so. Lower class women were allowed to do so. Then further you mention after this, lower class women were allowed to do so. Women were allowed to participate, women were allowed to participate in religious discourse, in religious discourse, in religious discourse and in religious discourse, and they were allowed to listen to the religious literature. They were allowed to listen to the religious literature. Religious literature. Full stop. Then listen. The first instance of the sati, I think in one class somebody asked, मुझे नाम तो नहीं याद है कि किसने पूछा था, but in some class somebody asked. So listen about the sati. So the instance of the sati that we get from the first archaeological evidence of the sati we get from the Gupta period. And in fact, there is this particular inscription, name of the inscription is the Iran inscription of the Madhya Pradesh. So which is dated around 510 AD, which mentions that Sati Pratha was prevalent during the Gupta period. So it was practiced during the Gupta period. And I hope you must be knowing that what is Sati Pratha, that when the husband dies, so women, they were also supposed to die with the husband. Means that they would be jumping into the burning log of the pyre, and they will be dying with the husband. And if at all, if women is not willing to do so, so then she was forced to perform sati. So this was the system in the sati. There is a change in this kind of this death of the wives after the death of the husband in the medieval period. That is Johar. I will talk about that in detailed fashion in the medieval, but not over here. Here we are just mentioning the sati, that and what was sati. So you write, The first evidence of sati, the first evidence of sati, first archaeological evidence you write, first archaeological evidence of sati has been found in Gupta period, has been found in Gupta period. Then further you mention Iran inscription, Iran inscription, Iran inscription, and it's situated in Madhya Pradesh, which is dated around 510 AD, which is dated around 510 AD, 510 AD, mentions Sati Pratha, mentions Sati Pratha, Pratha or Sati tradition, Sati Pratha or Sati tradition. Sati Pratha or Sati tradition. So these are the some of the negative things that we have talked about, but it's not like that everything is negative as far as the aspect of the women is concerned during the Gupta period. So next part related to the women only in the Gupta period. So listen, that there was one famous lawgiver of this time and his name was Katyayan. So Katyayan, and Katyayan was the lawgiver. Basically the meaning of the person who was lawgiver means that the person who was writing the law of that time or legal codes of that time, that how people must be behaving in the society. So he was a famous lawgiver of this time, Katyayan, and Katyayan, he further explained Stri Dhan. Then he explained Stri Dhan, and according to him, what was this Stri Dhan? Basically, the articles, or wealth, particularly wealth, given to the girl at the time of the marriage. So he defined that these are the precious articles, valuables which are given to the girl at the time of her marriage. So this is the Stridhan. This concept is there from the long time. Then that the articles which are going with the girl, that is Stridhan. But what he maintained at this point of time, that he maintained that these precious articles like jewelry, like many other things which are precious, so these are the property of the women only, that the girl who is getting married, it's the property of her only, and it's not a dowry price. So he maintained that it's not a dowry price, but it's the property of girl for her own maintenance. And he also maintained that only she has the right to sell this property, only she has the right to mortgage this particular valuable articles. Then so only she can sell it or she can mortgage it, not the family in which she is married. So means husband cannot do it, and women or the mother-in-law, father-in-law, they cannot do it. So he clearly defined that this is the property of the girl who is getting married, and it is meant for her own maintenance. So you write, the famous lawgiver of this time, the famous lawgiver of this time, lawgiver of this time, Katyayan, Katyayan, spelling is written on the board so you can see that. So Katyayan further clarified the concept of Stri Dhan. Further clarified the concept of Stri Dhan. Then further you mention he maintained that the precious articles and jewelries, precious articles and jewelry given to the girl, he maintained that the precious articles and jewelry given to the girl at the time of her marriage, given to the girl at the time of her marriage is meant for her maintenance, is meant for her maintenance, is meant for her maintenance, and only she has the right, and only she has the right to sell it and mortgage it. She has the right to sell it and mortgage it. So only she has the right to sell it and mortgage it. Mortgage it, that is girvi rakhna. So this is about this particular Stridhan and what Katyan wrote. Now one last part of the society during the Gupta period. Listen, that untouchability as a part and parcel of the this Hindu system. It over the period it became not part and parcel, I'll not say, but it was one of the sin of the Hinduism, which formalized or which kind of that consolidated in the ancient period itself. So untouchability. So earlier, by the time of the post-Maurya, let me tell you, listen a little bit. By the time of the post-Maurya, already this concept of the untouchables were very much there, and there were two type of the untouchables at the time of the post-Maurya period: Nirvashit Sudra and Anirvashit Sudra. Nirvasit were the one means who were not allowed to live in the village or town. They were living on the periphery. And Anirvasit means that they were the ones who were living inside the premise of the village or town. In the Gupta period, in this Nirvasit type of the Sudra, one large number of subcategory emerged, and this large number of subcategory is the Chandal. So Chandals emerged in large number during the Gupta period. And who were these Chandal? So they were type of the Nirvashit Sudra. They were type of the Nirvashit Sudra who were not allowed to live in the village and town, not allowed to live inside the village or town. And these Chandals, they were living in the graveyards or peripheries of the graveyards or peripheries. Then, so they were living closer to the graveyards or the peripheries of the village and town. Moreover, several disabilities were imposed on them. So several disabilities were imposed on them. And what is this disability? For example, that these Chandals, they were doing the menial kind of job. Then, so what is this menial kind of job? That cleaning the drains and cleaning the excreta of the humans, then and also cleaning the cleaning work. So cleaning the roads and these all kind of things. So what was this disability which is imposed on them? So whenever these Chandals were allowed to enter into the village, so whenever they were entering into the village, so they were blowing horns or beating drums so that the people who considered themselves to be pure, they must go inside their houses, they must not see their faces, and till the time they are there in the village, they are cleaning the things, people will be there inside their houses. Another such disability which was imposed on them, that their entry time in the village or town was also fixed, because they cannot enter into the village in the early morning and late evening. They cannot be there in the village till late evening. So why so? Because they were considered as a pollution. Then they were considered as a pollution, and even their shadows were considered as a pollution. So in the morning, you know that when sun is in there on the eastern horizon, that very low, so obviously the shadow of the person is very long. In evening also, that on the western side sun is low, so then shadows of the person would be very long. So even this was also considered as a kind of pollution. In fact, in society classes, whenever it will happen in your batch, so you will be reading about the caste system. Ma'am would be teaching you caste system, and there you will understand that the central point of the caste system is the concept of the purity and pollution. Then, so here these kind of disabilities were imposed on this Shudras, that is Nirvashit Shudras. So please mention little bit about the post-Maurya also here, because since the beginning is there from the post-Maurya. So you write that by the time of post-Maurya, two type of Sudra, two type of post-Maurya period, two type of Shudra emerged. So first you write Anirvasit Sudra, Anirvasit. So Anirvasit Sudra, and you can write lived inside village or town. Village or town. And then you write Nirvasit Sudra. Nirvasit Sudra, and not allowed to live inside village or town. Not allowed to live inside village or town. So this is by the time of the post-Maurya. This is there. Then you write after this, during Gupta period, large number of Chandalas, during Gupta period, large number of Chandalas, the word is written over here, large number of Chandal, who were category of Nirvasit Sudra. Large number of Chandal who were category of Nirvasit Sudra emerged. Who were category of Nirvasit Sudra emerged. Then further you mention they were living in the graveyards. They were living in the graveyards. They were living in the graveyards and on the peripheries of towns or villages. And on the peripheries of towns or villages. Then further you mention several disabilities were imposed on them. Several disabilities were imposed on them. Several disabilities were imposed on them. For example, they needed to blow horn or beat drum. They needed to blow horn or beat drum whenever they entered inside the village. Whenever they entered inside the village. Whenever they entered inside the village or town also. Then you write, moreover, they cannot enter in early morning. Moreover, they cannot enter in early morning and remain till late evening. And remain till late evening. Remain till late evening as their shadows were also considered as pollution. Their shadows were also considered as pollution. Then, so this is what was there in the Gupta period, that what kind of system existed in the Gupta period. So we have mentioned all the aspects of the Guptas, and after completion of this topic, you try to attempt some of the questions related to the Guptas which has been asked in the previous year paper. So try to attempt at your own, and look at the development, that how well you are able to answer the questions. Then, so after this part, I will be starting with the Sangam Age dynasties, and after the Sangam Age dynasty, we'll move to the Harshvardhan period. So I'll be giving you a break over here, and your queries you can send at this point of time. So I will see that, and then I'll be answering it after the break. Okay? So it's 4 5 minutes late. So let's begin with the next topic, Sangam Age. So if you go by the chronology that we have seen, Sangam Age is little bit earlier to the Gupta period. But though they were earlier to the Gupta period, that their emergence was earlier to the Gupta period, but their dominant phase was contemporary to the Guptas. Then now when it comes to the this Sangam age, I will tell you later on that why we call this as a Sangam age. Particularly in South India, there were three dynasties which emerged, particularly in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and parts of Karnataka and Andhra. So in these areas, the three dynasties were there: Chola, Chera, and Pandyas, and these three are identified with the Sangam age. So the name Sangam age is synonymous with the Tamil literature or the Sangam literature. The age in which Sangam literature was written, we often call it the Sangam age. Now, when it comes to these three Sangam age dynasties, Chola, Chera, and Pandyas, their emergence was somewhere around 4th century BC. But nowadays, new information is coming, and according to the new information, very recently, last year, when this pandemic was not still in the scenario, there was some excavation which was going in the state of Tamil Nadu and at the site of the Kiladi. So at the site of the Kiladi, the as per the information, this Sangam age was as older as the time of the you can say that 4th century or 5th century BC. But till this point of time, whatever available information is there, according to that, we will keep it by 4th century BC only. So they emerged somewhere around 4th century BC. In fact, that in the Asoka's inscription also, they have been mentioned. Some of the Sangam rulers are mentioned. For example, the Chera rulers are mentioned in some of the Asoka's inscriptions, like Kerala Putras. So their origin was there somewhere in the 4th century BC, but their very dominant phase started from the 1st century AD. And in fact, they were contemporaries of the Guptas also. And we will see that what was the development, who was the important ruler, and what kind of initiatives he took during his tenure. So let's begin with the Sangam age. So you write few words about them, that around 4th century, around 4th century BC, around 4th century BC, three dynasties emerged, in South India, which were the Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas. The Chera, Chola, and Pandya. The Chera, Chola, and Pandya. Then further we mention the Chera, Chola, and Pandya. Cheras were also mentioned as Kerala Putra, Kerala Putra, Kerala Putra in the Mauryan inscriptions. In the Mauryan inscriptions. In the Mauryan inscriptions. So Kerala Putra mentioned as Kerala Putra in the Mauryan inscriptions. Then further after this one, so let's one by one, it is just the way we studied some of the dynasties during the post-Maurya period. Here also we are going by the same trend. So rather than taking too much time, just come to the important topic of this one. So first I will start with the Cheras. So you can write it as a subheading, the Cheras. So Cheras, as it has been written that they were also known as Kerala Putra, but let's look at the other details related to them. So if I draw the map of India, and if I'll have to locate these rulers in map of India, so the Kerala part is for the Cheras. This area is identified with the Chera territory. The Tamil Nadu, not entire Tamil Nadu, but the lower half from the middle and till the lower half is the Pandya kingdom. So this area is Pandya kingdom. And then parts of the Karnataka, Andhra will include, you can increase little bit this. So parts of the Andhra Karnataka was the Chola. So this is the Chola area, Pandya and then Chera area. So in the Chera, you write that again you can mention if you want, they were also known as Kerala Putra, but the initial ruler, so I will write in this format. You can also write down simultaneously. Initial ruler was Udain Jaral. Initial ruler was Udain Jaral. Then capital, their capital was Karur. Karur was the capital of the Cheras. Then you can also write simultaneously some things, few things I will not be dictating. So most important ruler was Senguttuvan. Most important ruler of Cheras was Senguttuvan, also known as Good Chera or Red Chera. Also known as Good Chera or Red Chera. This person also known as Good Chera or Red Chera. Then what is his contribution? So obviously whenever we are mentioning the most important ruler, so his contribution we need to mention. So here the contribution of the Senguttuvan, that he founded temple of Kannagi. He founded temple of Kannagi. And who is Kannagi? Goddess of Chastaiti. Goddess of Chastaiti. What do you mean by this? Goddess of Chastaiti. So meaning of this in Hindi, what you say, Pavitrata ki Devi or Pativrata ki Devi. This is what they say. So goddess of Chastaiti, he created temple of Kannagi. Moreover, he also founded, so let me write here, he also founded Patini cult. He also founded Patini cult. See these Kannagi, maybe some of you are hearing this name for the very first time, and also this Patini cult. So give me little bit of time so that once I'll be talking about the Sangam assembly, so you will understand that who was Kannagi, and then also this Patani cult was associated with the Kannagi. So this is about what were the initiatives of the Senguttuvan. Moreover, not only these initiatives, but also we need to know the important port of the Cheras at this point of time. So you mentioned most important port of Chera was Musiri. Even till this point of time, this port is there, and it is one of the important ports in the Kerala. In fact, it is the green heritage port of India, first green heritage port of India. So Musiri was the most important port of the Cheras. Please write these all. I'll give you 1 minute and then I'll move to the Chola and then Pandyas. So now let's look at the next rulers or next dynasty in the South India, the Cholas. The Cholas. Now, here also same kind of information will be writing: initial ruler, their capital, their most important ruler, contribution. So, the very first thing, that initial ruler. So, initial ruler of the Chola was Ilara. Initial ruler was Ilara. Then their capital was Kaveripatnam. Kaveripatnam and Puhar. Two capital, so Kaveripatnam and Puhar. Then next, so what I have mentioned, so most important ruler of the Chola. Most important ruler. So most important ruler was Karikala. Karikala. So Karikala was the most important Chola ruler. Then what is contribution of the Karikala? So let me write on the board. So the most important contribution of this person, in fact, that he was the first person who came up with the concept of a dam construction. So in ancient India, he is the first ruler who constructed a dam, and this dam was known as the Kalnai Dam. Kalanai Dam. So you write, perhaps he was the first ruler, perhaps he was the first ruler who created Kalanai Dam. This is written over here. You can see the spelling. So Kalanai Dam on Kaveri River. Kalanai Dam on Kaveri River. Kaveri River. Then after this, what else we have written? Capital we have written, initial ruler. So let's write most important port of the Chola. Most important port of Cholas, and this port is, one is the Kaveripatnam itself. Kaveripatnam itself was the one important port, and then is the Arikamedu. So two ports are there, Arikamedu, and this Arikamedu is the present day area of the Puducherry. So Arikamedu is the present day area of the Puducherry. And then, so please write fast. I'll move to the Pandyas, and then combinedly I'll tell you some economic features of these three kingdoms. So now, after this, next you mention the Pandyas. The Pandyas. So Pandyas, when it comes to the Pandyas, so the very first ruler, initial ruler, again same kind of information I'm writing. So initial ruler was Mudu Komudi. I hope that my writing is clear. You are able to understand that what I am writing on the board. So the initial ruler was Mudukumudi. Then their capital was Madurai. Capital was Madurai. And then comes the most important ruler. Most important ruler was Nedunjelian. So let me write clearly. Nedunjelian was the most important ruler. Nedunjelian was the most important ruler. Then why that, what is information, further information available about him? So you can mention he is known for curse of Kannagi. Curse of Kannagi. He is known for curse of Kannagi. There is this and very beautiful story related to this one, but I am not telling you today at this point of time, because once again in language and literature, when I'll be talking about the Sangam literature in elaborate, so there I'll be telling you the story, but here I'll give you little bit of idea that what it is all about. So he is known for the curse of Kannagi. In very first, in the Chera you wrote Sengutuan time that he created temple of Kannagi, and here you're writing that he is known for the curse of Kannagi. So I know that you must be anxious about, not anxious, but you must be enthusiastic about knowing that what is the story. I'll be telling you later on. So this is one aspect. Then now come to the most important port, and then before most important port you write during the tenure of the Pandyas, three Sangam assemblies were held. During the tenure of the Pandyas, three Sangam assemblies were held. Three Sangam assemblies were held, which gave rise to Tamil literature. Which gave rise to Tamil literature. Then you write most important port of the Pandyas. So this most important port is Korkai and Thuthukudi. So Korkai and Thuthukudi is the most important port of the Pandyas. Now listen. So these three dynasties, since you can see in the diagram itself that they are the coastal dynasties, so obviously their very important source of revenue was the coastal trade. Then so they were very rich, that these three dynasties were quite rich, and their richness can be attributed to, you if you see the diagram, so they are the spice region of India, spice hub of the India, so they are the spice country. So they traded spices. Moreover, this is also the region where elephants were in large numbers, and elephant tusker, the teeth which is emerging from the elephant's trunk. So the elephant tusker, which is what we call ivory. So ivory is also a very precious material. So they also traded ivory. Moreover, since they are coastal areas, and if you go deeper into understanding the geography of this area, particularly on the eastern side, you see that Park Strait is there, and in the Park Bay or Park Strait, so much of pearl formations are there. So they were trading spices, they were trading ivory, and they were trading many agricultural commodities, ink, and also the pearls to the Arab traders, and also these were further traded to the Roman world. So that's how these areas or these dynasties were quite rich, and moreover they were the exports of the navigation technology. Their shipbuilding techniques were quite advanced, so that's why they were rich and powerful also. So please write in a common such kind of paragraph. You don't need to write any heading, but you write that all the three dynasties of Sangam age all the three dynasty of Sangam age were quite rich were quite rich and had powerful navies and had powerful navy or powerful naval power or powerful naval system, not power, so powerful naval system. Then you write powerful naval system, full stop. They traded spices, spices, they traded spices, ivory, ivory, pearls, ivory, pearls, and cotton textile, cotton textile with Arab traders, cotton textile with Arab traders and and further further to the Roman areas and further to the Roman areas. Further to the Roman areas. So this is about this particular the three dynasties in the Sangam age. Now, let me tell you that this Sangam assembly which I mentioned, and I mentioned that under the Pandya rulers, three Sangam assemblies were held, and the outcome of this assembly was the Tamil literature. Not only the Tamil literature, but there are two epics of the Tamil literature which was also written down or written during this period. So the two epics are the Silapadikaram and Manimekalai. So the entire story of the Kannagi, Nedunjeli and Senguttuvan you will find in this Silapadikaram, and Silapadikaram was written by a writer known as Ilango Adigal. So this I am not dictating at this point of time, or I am not mentioning further about this at this point of time, because once again I'll be mentioning this in language and literature chapter of the art and culture, where I'll be elaborately mentioning the story of the Silapadikaram. So you don't need to write the name Silapadikaram over here or who is the writer. Just keep in mind that this story part I will be again covering over there in the this particular language and literature part. So now let's come to the after this Pandyas and that these all three dynasties of the Sangam age and Guptas. So Guptas disappeared by 550, and these three kingdoms are also the contemporary of the Guptas. So in them also that these Chola rulers which I mentioned, by 600 they were replaced by the Pallavas and Chalukyas. Then so in South India there would be a change that Pallavas and Chalukyas will take place of the Chola, though the Pandyas and Cheras would be surviving, but Pallavas and Chalukyas will take place. The Cholas will disappear, and then these two will come to picture. 550 AD Guptas disappeared from North India, and Gupta's place in North India was filled by another dynasty which was known as the Pushyabhuti dynasty based in Thanishwar. So that dynasty we will be looking at first, and then we'll move to the Pallava Chalukya, and after the Pallava Chalukya we'll be moving to the after the Pushyabhuti dynasty who came to north, central and eastern India, and then also finally in South India after the demise of the Pallavas who came in South India, that was the mainline Chola dynasty. So that would be the last topic. So in chronology also I have mentioned in this way only. So let's look at the now Gupta on one hand, completed and Sangam dynasty completed, the contemporaries. So let's go back to the erstwhile Gupta area. So after the demise of the Guptas, who is the new ruler in the area of the Guptas? So please mention as a heading Pushyabhuti dynasty. Pushyabhuti dynasty. So Pushyabhuti dynasty, now listen, that this Pushyabhuti dynasty came to power somewhere around by 600 AD. And this Pushyabhuti dynasty, it was based in Thaneshwar in Haryana. Then, so this is also, this is what you can find in this year paper itself, that 2020 का जो तुम्हारा prelims का paper था, and it was very much mentioned in your notes. You could have easily done address these all question. एक बार फिर से जाके घर पे इस साल का पेपर देख लेना till this point of time and see that you are able to address it from the classes itself or not. So I must have mentioned in the very first class in your batch that how many questions from last 4-5 years are coming from your class notes only. So unnecessarily बहुत परेशान होने की जरूरत नहीं है. That particularly for this section, that you need to read so many books and so many things so that you will be addressing all the question. Please don't be worried about that. Majority of the things you will find in the class notes itself. Then, so this dynasty was based in Thaneshwar, Haryana. Thaneshwar in Haryana. This is the place from where it emerged, and the founder of this dynasty was a person. His name was Prabhakar Vardhan. Then, so the founder of this dynasty, just listen to the story. So Prabhakar Vardhan was the founder of this dynasty. Now, when it comes to Prabhakar Vardhan, so he had 3 children. The eldest one was the Rajyavardhan. Let me write these all names in their family. Rajyavardhan. Then after, there was a daughter. Name of the daughter was Rajyashri. Rajyashri. And then the younger son was Harshvardhan. Harshvardhan. Then, so Prabhakar Vardhan, during his own lifetime, what he did, that he married his daughter Rajyashri to the ruler of Kannauj at that point of time, to the ruler of the Kannauj. And name of the ruler of the Kannauj, just listen to the story. लिख लेंगे अभी थोड़ी देर में, but let's listen to the story. So Prabhakar Vardhan is the founder of Pushyabhuti. His daughter Rajyashri, she was married to the ruler of Kannauj, and name of this ruler of Kannauj was Grahavarman. Grahavarman. Then, and many times people do ask that what was his dynasty. So his dynasty was known as Maukhari. So Rajyashri was married to Kannauj ruler Grahavarman. Now at this point of time, what happened? After some point of time, Prabhakar Vardhan's death happened, and after the death of the Prabhakar Vardhan, the eldest son Rajyavardhan became the ruler. Now when the Rajyavardhan was the ruler, so there was one person who was adversary of this Vardhans of the Haryana. So who was this adversary of the Vardhans? So there was this ruler of the Bengal, separate hai. एक बार पहले कहानी सुनो. Then, so the ruler of the Bengal, his name was Shashank Gowda. Shashank Gowda. So Shashank Gowda was the adversary of the Vardhans. Then, and what he did, this Shashank Gowda, he killed Grahavarman, this person, because Kannauj was a very important center, important city at this point of time. So with the intention to capture Kannauj, Shashank killed Grahavarman. Then, and not only he killed Grahavarman, but he also captured Rajyashri. So the sister of these Vardhans. So he also captured Rajyashri, killed Grahavarman. In this situation, when Rajyavardhan went to fight with Shashank Gowda, treacherously he also killed Rajyavardhan. Then, so treacherously he also killed Rajyavardhan. Now in this situation, Harshvardhan, who was the younger son of the Prabhakar Vardhan, he was the one to kind of that to reach to a solution or to take the revenge of the killing of the Rajyavardhan and Grihavarman. So he was little bit intelligent, and not little bit, but in fact he was intelligent, and he was not an emotional fool. So he just looked at the situation, and he assessed the situation, whereby he found that Shashank Gowda is too powerful to be defeated at this point of time. So then he realized that only thing that he can do immediately is that see how he can free the sister Rajyashri. So he was successful in that kind of that releasing the sister Rajyashri from the captivity of the Shashank Gowda, and then he took his time, little bit of time, to defeat Shashank Gowda, and Shashank Gowda was a formidable enemy. He was defeated by the Harshvardhan 13 years later. So 13 years later. So immediately if Harshvardhan would also have gone to fight with the Shashank, so maybe Shashank was uh, the way treacherously he killed Rajyavardhan, maybe he must have killed Harshvardhan also. So Harshvardhan took his time, but finally he revenge or take the revenge of the killing of his family men, and also eliminated Shashank Gowda. So this is the initial story. There are many other episodes associated with the Harshvardhan and Shashank Gowda. For example, that Shashank Gowda, he was a staunch Hindu, and he was the person who cut the original Bodhi tree, the Bodhi tree under which the Buddha got Nirvana in Bodh Gaya. So he was the one who cut that Bodhi tree. And if you remember, when I was talking about the Asoka's period, so why we said that the third Buddhist council was the most important, because the missionary activity which happened after the third Buddhist council, Asoka sent his own son and daughter Mahendra and Sanghamitra to Sri Lanka with the sapling of that original Bodhi tree, and that Bodhi tree survived outside India in Sri Lanka, and in India this person later on he cut the original Bodhi tree. So that's how Buddhism also survived, and also the original symbol of the Buddhism, that is the Bodhi tree, also survived because of the Asoka's initiative. So please mention few words about this. So you write that after after the demise of Guptas, after the demise of Guptas, a vacuum was created. A vacuum was created in North India. A vacuum was created in North India, which was filled by Pushyabhuti dynasty, which was filled by Pushyabhuti dynasty, based in Thaneshwar, Haryana, which was filled by Pushyabhuti dynasty, based in Thaneshwar, Haryana, by 600 AD. By 600 AD. By 600 AD. Then further you mention by 600 AD. Prabhakar Vardhan, this name which is written over here, you can write. So Prabhakar Vardhan was the founder of this dynasty. Prabhakar Vardhan was the founder of this dynasty. Then you mention he married his daughter Rajyashri. He married his daughter Rajyashri to the Maukhari ruler of Kannauj. Maukhari, Maukhari. Maukhari ruler of Kannauj, Grihavarman. Maukhari ruler of Kannauj, Grihavarman. Maukhari ruler of Kannauj, Grihavarman. Full stop. Then you mention Grahavarman. After the death of Prabhakar Vardhan, after the death of Prabhakar Vardhan, his elder son, his elder son, Rajyavardhan, his elder son, Rajyavardhan became the ruler. His elder son, Rajyavardhan became the ruler. Became the ruler. Full stop. Then you write, became the ruler. At this time, one of his adversary, Shashank Gowda, one of his adversary, Shashank Gowda, killed Grahavarman and captured Rajyashree. Killed Grahavarman and captured Rajyashree. Then further you mention captured Rajyashree. He also assassinated Rajyavardhan. Treacherously. After which, young Harshvardhan became the next ruler. Full stop. Then you write, Harshvardhan first freed the sister Rajyashree from the captivity of Shashank. He also established his hold over Kannauj. And made Kannauj as his capital. So in the present day times, that Kannauj is still a very famous city and it is still known for many unique things. For example, Kannauj is known for the perfume capital of India. There are many GI tag perfumes which are Itra. I hope you are understanding that what is Itra. So some of the GI tag Itra or perfumes are manufactured over here in Kannauj. Few of the famous are the rose Itra, that gulab, then many other flowers, so gulab, that marigold, many other flowers, and then one of the very famous perfume from the Kannauj at this point of time is the perfume which emerges from the dry earth. For example, that whenever you see the first rain happening after the summer months, that after 2-3 summer months, and when the first rain is happening, so very unique type of fragrance emerges from the earth, emerges from the soil, that is also even manufactured in the Kannauj. So Kannauj, from the very long time, it is a very famous city and it is on the banks of the closer to the Ganga river also. So Kannauj he made his capital. Now you understood? He made his capital. Then Shashank was a formidable enemy and it took almost 13 years. Finally Harshvardhan defeated Shashank. So you write that Shashank Shashank was a formidable enemy. Shashank was a formidable enemy, and and it took almost 13 years. It took almost 13 years to finally defeat Shashank. Or Harshvardhan took almost 13 years to finally defeat Shashank. To finally defeat Shashank and annex the eastern territories. And annex the eastern territories. So now if I complete this map which I have created at this point of time, little bit of completion. So just to give you an insight that which all areas we can identify with the area of the Shashank, or sorry, that area of the Harshvardhan. So here, listen, just look at this diagram, and Narmada river which emerges from that Amarkantak plateau in Madhya Pradesh. So Narmada river goes like this way. Then, so all the area above this Narmada, this entire area was the Harshvardhan area. So this was the Harshvardhan area by this time. And already this Chela, Chola, Pandyas. So what I said to you that by 6th century AD, Pandyas are surviving. Even this Chera are, they are also surviving, but this Cholas will disappear. So once these Cholas are disappearing, so at this place of this Cholas, that this kind of territory you will see. Then, so this kind of territory you will see, and basically that till this Narmada, and here this way. So this will go to the Pallava, this area will go to the Pallava, and this area will go to the Chalukya. So this Chalukya and Pallavas would be the contemporary of the Harshvardhan. Then, so this Chalukya and Pallavas, just after Harshvardhan, we'll be looking at the Chalukyas and Pallavas. But you need to understand that contemporary of the Harshvardhan would be Chalukyas and Pallavas also. Pandya Cheras are also there, but these are the more powerful rulers at this point of time in the South India. So Chalukya and Pallava. Now, after establishing his control in the eastern part, already he has complete hold over in the northern part, northwestern part, and this area. So he wanted that Harshvardhan he was an ambitious ruler. He wanted to extend his rule to the south of river Narmada. And when he marched towards south of river Narmada, so he had this fight with the Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. Listen, so there was a battle between Harshvardhan and Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. In this battle, for the very first time, Harshvardhan was defeated. Then, so Harshvardhan was defeated in this battle, but after the defeat, a friendship treaty was signed between the Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II and Harshvardhan. And this friendship treaty, it is inscribed in the famous inscription of the Aihode. Then I'll be writing the name also. So it was mentioned in the Aihode inscription and Aihode inscription of Karnataka. In this inscription, what is mentioned that after this war was over in which Harshvardhan was defeated, so both the parties agreed that in future they will consider Narmada as boundary, means that Chalukya would not extend into the North India and Harshvardhan will not try to venture into the south further. So this is what was the terms of the treaty. So please mention Harsh, and you change paragraph, and then you mention Harshvardhan was an ambitious ruler. Harshvardhan was an ambitious ruler. Then further you mention Harshvardhan was an ambitious ruler. He wanted to expand his territory. He wanted to expand his territory further south of Narmada river. further south of Narmada river. Narmada river, full stop. As such, as such, he fought with, as such, he fought with, as such, he fought with Chalukya ruler, as such, he fought with Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. Pulakesin II. As such, he fought with Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. In which Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II, full stop, in which Pulakesin defeated Harshvardhan. In which Pulakesin defeated Harshvardhan. Pulakesin defeated Harshvardhan. Then you write, after the battle, after the battle, after the battle, a friendship treaty or peace treaty, you can say, a friendship treaty or peace treaty was signed, peace treaty was signed between the two rulers. Between the two rulers mentioned in Ihode inscription. Mentioned in Ihode. See that it is written as Ihole, but in Kannada language they call it Ihode. Then, so Ihode inscription. Mentioned in Ihode inscription, full stop. Then, after this, as per the treaty, as per the treaty, it was agreed, as per the treaty, it was agreed that in future, it was agreed that in future, so if at all any question is there, please send, I will address after this one. Then, so in future, they will not venture into each other's territory. They will not enter into each other's territory and recognized Narmada river as the boundary. And recognized Narmada river as the boundary. As the boundary. So this is one episode associated with the Harshvardhan. Now, there is one more very final, that very interesting episode associated with the Harshvardhan. So listen that from here onwards. So at this point of time, that during the tenure of the Harshvardhan, the very famous Chinese Buddhist traveler, his name was Huensang. So Huensang came to Kannauj. So Huensang came to Kannauj, and there are some interesting stories associated with the Huensang. So just listen to the one part of it, that Huensang, after coming to the Kannauj and being in India, so he wrote a book. The name of the book was the Siyuki. And in this book, he has written the experience, his own experience in the Harshvardhan's court and what was there in India. So Harshvardhan court. So he has mentioned one such incident which has happened with Huensang himself. Then, now listen, what was this incident? That he has mentioned in his book that in the city of the Kannauj, there was severest of the punishment were given to the people even for the pettiest of the crime. Then, so there was a very strict provision of the punishment even for the pettiest of the crime. For example, he said that even if somebody is stealing a very not so costly material, even somebody is stealing little bit of thing, so his hands were cut down. So he has mentioned that even if you are stealing a bread, so then also your hands would be cut down. So this he has mentioned. Then he further adds in his book that though there was a strict provision of the punishment in the Kannauj, Yet the streets of Kannauj were not free from the robbers. Done. So yet the streets of Kannauj were not free from the robbers, and then he mentions his own that his own story that what happened to him. So he mentions that I was looted on the streets of the Kannauj by the robbers. Then, so his story itself was a very interesting, that a Chinese man has come to India, and in China different kind of culture is there, different kind of costumes they are wearing. Then, and so many things were carried by Huensang when he came to Kannauj. Then, so he was looking like a person in the middle of the things. Then, so he was carrying so much of paraphernalia. What happened that it was enticing to the robbers who were there in the Kannauj, so they looted him on the streets of the Kannauj. And as per the history, that historical details which is mentioned, that this Huensang was left only on the underpants, and everything was looted by these robbers. Then, so when this news reached to the Harshvardhan court, and Huensang was called into the court to to just reveal that what has happened to him. So everybody was laughing on Huensang, that those who were the courtiers, and suddenly this particular person, Harshvardhan, he realized a spark in the and calm and composure of the Huensang, and then he started his own conversation with the Huensang. He was so influenced, and over the period he was so influenced with the Huensang that he accepted Mahayana Buddhism under the guidance of the Huensang. So there is one more part of the story, but you write at least this much. So you change paragraph and then you write, during the tenure of Harshvardhan, during the tenure of Harshvardhan, the famous Chinese Buddhist traveler, during the tenure of Harshvardhan, the famous Chinese Buddhist traveler Wensang many times Wensang's name is also mentioned in this way, Zhuangziang. Then, so you can also write this name. So Wensang came to India. Came to India. Then you write, he wrote his experience, he wrote his experience of Harshvardhan's court. He wrote his experience of Harshvardhan's court in his book, See You Key. In his book, See You Key. In his book, See You Key. Full stop. In his book, See You Key. Then further you mention, he writes, full stop, after full stop you write, he writes that there was very strict provision of the punishment. He writes that there was very strict provision of punishment even for the pettiest of the crime, even for the pettiest of the crime in Kannauj. Even for the pettiest of the crime in Kannauj. Then you mention, he further adds that even in this situation, the streets of Kannauj, even in this situation, the streets of Kannauj were not free from robbers. Were not free from robbers. Even in this situation, the streets of Kannauj were not free from robbers. Full stop. Then you write, after full stop, again you change paragraph. Then you write, Harshvardhan was devotee of devotee of Lord Shiva and the sun. Harshvardhan was the devotee of Lord Shiva and the sun. And the sun. Full stop. And the sun. Full stop. Under the influence of Wensang, under the influence of Wensang, he also accepted, and I'm adding also accepted. I'm not saying he accepted, but also accepted Mahayana Buddhism. The meaning of this word also, which I have mentioned here, that Mahayana Buddhism, so not at the cost of this, means that he continued his worship towards the Lord Shiva, the sun, but he further added in his basket Mahayana Buddhism. Then, so he is worshipping Lord Shiva, he continued his worship of Lord Shiva and the sun, but he further added Mahayana Buddhism in his faith. So, to show his supports towards Mahayana Buddhism, there is so much of noise in each and every class. All of a sudden, some noise starts. So, so what I was saying, that to show his supports towards the Mahayana Buddhism, he convened two councils, and one council was held at Prayag, another what the Kannauj. So first council Kannauj and then Prayag. So these two places the councils were held, and in both the councils Wensang gave elaborate lectures on the Mahayana Buddhism. So you write, to show his support, बोलना उनको बोलना बोले 10 मिनट के लिए बंद कर दे. So you write, to show his support towards Mahayana Buddhism, he convened two councils. One at Kannauj, other at Prayag. Two councils, one at Kannauj and other at Prayag. Then further you mention, one at Kannauj, other at Prayag. Then in both the councils, Wensang gave elaborate lectures on Mahayana Buddhism. Then now listen to the last part associated with the Harshvardhan. So after it is said about the Harshvardhan that some kind of miscreant activities also happened during these two events, whereby somebody put the tent on fire. But after these assemblies were over, these two councils were over, so Harshvardhan decided to give up all his personal wealth and he started to rule like a monk. Then, so he is not giving up the wealth of the kingdom, the royal treasury, but he gave up his personal luxury, his personal wealth. Then, so he gave up his personal luxury and his personal wealth, and that's how he started. He led by example and he lived like a monk from here onwards. Then, so he lived like a monk, though he was the ruler, but with no such luxuries attached. Then, so please write that after the councils, Harshvardhan donated all his personal wealth and started to live like a monk. started to live like a monk. Live like a monk. So he was, in fact, he was ruler, but no luxuries attached. Now, one last thing I need to tell you, that Huensang returned to his own dynasty, that his own kingdom, his own area, China, and the ruler of the China was so influenced with the stories which Huensang told to them. So the Song ruler of the China, he thought that he said that he will be sending another envoy to India, and this envoy, Chinese Buddhist envoy, to send some present to the Harshvardhan. So he sent another envoy under the leadership of a traveler, I Sing. I will write his name. So I Sing. So the I Sing started his journey towards Kannauj, and the moment he reached over here in the Kannauj, he learnt the news that Harshvardhan is no more. Then, so he was not able to meet Harshvardhan, and he was gloomy by this news, that Ising was kind of saddened by this news, that he came all the way from the China to present his ruler's gift to the Harshvardhan. So he decided that since he was not able to meet, so he will go back to his own country. When he went back to his own country, so he was such an unfortunate guy, or many times you say that in Hindi there is a word panauti. So he was such an unfortunate or panauti guy that when he reached to his own kingdom in China, his own ruler died. So even he was not able to deliver this message that Harshvardhan is no more. So you write that, change paragraph and then you write, the Chinese Song ruler, the Chinese and Song Tsong, the Chinese Song ruler sent an envoy led by I Sing, I and Tsing, led by I Sing, to meet Harshvardhan in Kannauj. To meet Harshvardhan in Kannauj. But before the arrival of Ising, in Kannauj, Harshvardhan died. And this is the incident of 647 AD. So Harshvardhan died. So this is all about the Pushyabhuti dynasty and Harshvardhan. Next class, that is tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll be starting with the Pallava Chalukya, and after Pallava Chalukya, so I'll be telling you about the three dynasties in the Eastern India, Central India and Northwestern India, that is the Rashtrakoot, Pratihar, Gurjar and Pala dynasty, and the final chapter of the ancient, that is the mainline Chola dynasty, and then we'll start with the medieval. So tomorrow, first half of the class will be related to ancient, second half will be starting medieval. Chalo, so thank you for today. Meet you tomorrow.